last night, the Public Service Alliance of Canada followed through with its strike deadline. And as a result of, as of this morning, over 100,000 members and 5 bargaining units are now in a legal strike position and can withdraw their services. We recognize and respect employees' rights to strike, but when a good offer is on the table and there is a genuine commitment to compromise, the focus should be on negotiation.
That is Mona Fortier, president of the Treasury Board. We know workers want 13.5%. They've been offered 9%. 159,000 civil servants on strike, except only 110 of them are on the picket lines because 49,000 of them have been deemed essential. It's time to check in with Tom Mulcair. This segment brought to you by Guaranteed Industries. For the best Lennox home comfort systems out there, call Guaranteed Industries at 514-342-3400, a Lennox Premier dealer. So I think, Tom, the first thing I want to know is, do you think their demands are reasonable?
It's a very tough call because normally my sympathies are with the unions on this type of thing, having been an elected official in a Quebec Public Service Union, the Quebec Professionals Union, which is the second largest one in the Quebec government many years ago. But I understand the importance of trying to negotiate these things right. And I also sense that this is what we're dealing with here, a union that wanted to flex its muscles a bit, show that this is a serious negotiation. But as the inflation rates have started to crest and indeed drop. We were up in the 8% range, something we hadn't seen in 45 years. Now, all of a sudden, we're back in the 4% range. Look, it's changed quite a bit, and it seems to be getting itself under control. The other thing is, a lot of these civil servants have been working from home, no more costs for anything from transport to daycare, and everything changed completely. And they've done relatively well because those costs are, of course, part of what you bargain for to make sure that you're able to have something to live on after that. So I think that Mona Fortier was spot on. Normally, you should keep talking. Sometimes you want to show on the union side just how serious they take this, and you're going to be pushing back a little bit. But think about it, Natasha, for every day and every week eventually that they're off, it takes a heck of a long time to make any of that back because they're going to be deprived completely of their salary then. So I think that cooler heads will prevail, but I can see this going for maybe certainly at maximum a couple of weeks. If it goes any longer than that, there'll be back to work legislation because the average Canadian is fed up. They already couldn't get their passport. They already can't get their employment insurance check. There's all sorts of stuff in the government that's not working. And I'm not parroting Pierre Poilievre. It's a simple fact. And people are really tired of seeing a government that's increased the number of civil servants by 31% since Trudeau got there, and nothing to show for it. So if they're going off the job now, they're not going to have a lot of public support. That's the problem, too.
Yeah, and Union Representative Chris Elwood says they're going to stay as long as they need to stay, right? But like you say, I think that the sympathy is going to wane as soon as those services really seriously start to be affected. Let me just ask you specifically about the remote work thing, because they've been told to go back to work minimum 2 days a week, and they say they won't budge on that. If there's anywhere to budge, wouldn't that be where it should be?
Well, that's essentially something that is an employer's call. And we learned during the pandemic there are a lot of things that can be done outside the office. So they're already getting a break. If they're being told the flip side of that is you can stay home and work from home a few days a week, that's a lot of freedom that they didn't have before. But for them to keep pushing that forward and saying, well, no, we want to pretend like this is still the pandemic and we can't go into the office at all. There are also good reasons for maintaining a direct connection with your place of employment and your employer and your coworkers. It's part and parcel of the whole thing. But, this is exactly where I think Mona Fortier is right. The government has shown a fair bit of flexibility on this. I think that the union has to recognize it because they're not going to be able to plead that it's just as easy for the public to get all the services they need if people just don't go into the workplace. It's not true.
Okay, let's move on to speaking of someone else who's looking for a raise. Well, they're not even actually looking for a raise, but it's been recommended that they get one. M&A is looking at a 21% increase, I believe it is, $30,000 pay bump for most of them. What do you make of this?
Well, since everybody listening to us is throwing a shoe at their radio as they hear that, let me be the dissonant voice and say that Quebec members of the National Assembly are ridiculously underpaid for the work that they do, full stop. They work nights. They work weekends. They have massive sacrifices for their families because their job takes them away from their families for total of months and months every year. They work so much, and people don't realize that because they get tired of them and they just say, oh, no, they're always doing the same sort of thing. No. I'd say that 90% of them are really dedicated to the people in their ridings. They're out there doing events all the time. They're out providing services. They're organizing a riding office, which is in and of itself management. They're busy jobs. They're tough jobs. How it is that Quebec MNAs fell so far behind. I mean, compare everything here to what we've got in Ontario. Compare it to the federal MPs. And by the way, I've done both jobs, so I'm one of those lucky people who gets to have an opinion based on experience in both jobs. It is absolutely true that people in Ottawa work very hard, but in Quebec City, they work at least as hard, if not more. Only 125 people to cover the whole province, and they have a heck of a lot of work to do. So I think that they absolutely deserve this type of raise, and if anybody asks, I'm going to be saying the same thing on the French side as on the English side. Give them the raise that they deserve.
You always do. You don't change your message one language to the next. But I got to tell you, on the text line, a lot of people saying, well, if they can find the money to pay those M&As $30,000 more, what about the teachers and the nurses?
I agree completely, but maybe that'll help as well, because Legault is realizing that look at our nurses; they're grossly underpaid compared to Ontario. Our Crown prosecutors, they just settled with the people who are the lawyers with regard to with legal aid, but Crown prosecutors in Quebec earn 1/3 less. They earn 32% less than Crown prosecutors doing the exact same job in Ontario. How is that possible? Our nurses are amongst the lowest paid in Canada. Our teachers are the lowest paid in Canada. It's a captive market, and the government takes advantage of it because there's less mobility for linguistic reasons to other provinces. But it's the same job. They're working their tails off. I'm sure, like me, people, you have friends or family who are grade school teachers, and boy, do they work hard. And they're not appreciated, and the parents are rough these days. All their children are gifted, and it's the teacher's fault if anything goes wrong. And they've got a lot of work to do. So I think that they deserve a break as well. Yeah. This is going to be a big honking negotiation on the Quebec side. I think the Ottawa one's going to get settled. You know why? Because they're all looking at the guy who's standing behind Trudeau, maybe to replace him. I still don't really think that that's going to happen. But if Poilievre were ever to replace Trudeau, they know that they've been through a heck of a lot tougher ride in terms of negotiations. So I think that if they're smart, they'll negotiate and sign a nice long collective agreement with Trudeau.
Heck yeah. But I just to circle back for a moment, when you're describing about the M&As and the long hours and the sacrifices and the lack of family time, again, I'm thinking about teachers and nurses and
fair enough.
Very much in the same boat.
Yeah, you're right. But, this is 7 days a week. Even if you're on swing shifts and even if you sometimes get compulsory overtime, you're getting paid every time you do those extra hours, whereas nobody gives you a penny more for working at night or on a holiday or on the weekend, and you work all of those when you're on M&A.
So right about now, I should be asking you about Trudeau's Jamaican vacation, but you know what? I am sick of it.
Let's skip it.
I think we should absolutely skip it.
It is worth mentioning that a question period today, I think our friend Poilievre went a little bit over the top because he was throwing mud. As the old saying goes, when you're throwing mud, you're losing ground. Yep. And he was making mud pies out of a combination of Justin Trudeau's brother, Alexander, who signed the deal with the Chinese for the gift to the Trudeau Foundation, and the fact that the Green family had given money to the Trudeau Foundation, which is a charity to help students in Canada, somehow that became a bad thing for Mr. Poilievre. And as just listening to him pile the whole thing up, it fell down like a house of cards. Trudeau was a little bit too hot. He's been doing a little bit too much acting, frankly, for my taste, the past couple of days.
Agreed.
Which is, for me, a sign that he's having trouble dealing with Pierre Poilievre. He's just having trouble dealing with this guy who's always white hot. By the way, say what you want about the kookiness of what comes out of his mouth sometimes, but boy, is he structured. I mean, he just punches away during question period. Trudeau delivers his best line and, with a little bit of flourish, sits down saying, well, that's good. He's got no comeback for that. Oh, yeah? Watch this. And Poilievre is back up. Like those things that you had when you were a kid, you could punch it and it would go down and it would pop right back up again?
Yes.
That's Poilievre. And Poilievre always had, Trudeau's got tons and tons of energy, but Poilievre's got even more energy. And he's got fire in his belly. So it's, it's fun to watch. But Today is an example of where Poilievre can have too much fun, go a little bit too far, go a little bit over the top, and he loses his audience that way. He makes his base very happy, but he's got to go beyond his base if he wants to win the election, and I don't think he's succeeding in doing that so far.
He does have a knack for going over the top, and I think Trudeau might have one of those punching bags that bounce back up with Poilievre's face on it. I'm just guessing. Tom, it's always such a pleasure. Aaron will be back with us tomorrow.
I know, and our hearts go out to Aaron and his family for the loss of his mom, and I'm looking forward to talking to our friend tomorrow. You take good care.
You too. Thanks so much for your time. That is Tom Mulcair.